it is tempting to think that more is better, but better is better.
Well, my question to you is that you've already came into these videos with a name and a reputation. Would it be the same type of
That was brand new.
response rate if somebody were starting off fresh?
That is a fantastic question. And at least right now, I think the answer to that is kind of yes, because I have a friend, he goes by JM, as a Jean-Michel, he's in Quebec.
Yes,
And
I've
he's
interacted
been
with him a little
making,
bit.
yeah, and he's been making videos on this stuff. Super nice guy, really knows his stuff, and he's been making more RLM videos than I have been making, showing different pieces of the platform. His are shorter form and they're more like specifically in the product and stuff, but he's making really good videos. I've used them myself because I'm going, how the hell does this work? Hey, did JM make a video on this yet? Oh, he did. Fantastic. So then I watch his video. It helps out a little bit. And then I'll just reach out to him because we're friends. He's in my Slack workspace of Salesforce friends with a bunch of other Revenue Cloud nerds like me and him. And then I'll just, hey man, you mentioned this thing. I'm running into this issue. And he's like, oh yeah, he'll say, oh, I came across that issue as well. Try this thing. And Wayne Salazar is another friend of mine who's been posting a lot of stuff about revenue lifecycle management. And there are several other people. So what I'm doing for myself now is I'm assembling what I did with CPQ. I'm doing the same thing with RLM, which is, as of the next release, going to just be Revenue Cloud. So we're back to the beginning. It's all fits under Revenue Cloud. And maybe that's what I can do for this call today is kind of give the overview because it is confusing to people, including people like myself. What are the products now? What are we calling them? Okay, are we going to start calling it like Einstein Revenue Cloud soon? Because,
Oh,
why
definitely. That's
not?
coming.
Oh, give it
That's
time.
coming. Yeah.
I saw something about certifications the other day in a survey. Hey, what do you think about the new framework for certifications? And I'm going, as long as you don't put AI in every certification name, for the love of God. Uh, but anyway, I think there are bigger problems in the industry to solve than what we call ourselves certification wise, but whatever. That's somebody's job and they're doing it to the best of their ability. Meanwhile, I'm focused on Revenue Cloud stuff. So I'm just going to call it Revenue Cloud. I'm glad that I called it Revenue Cloud Office Hours from the beginning as the branding of it, because turns out I was right all along. We're just going to call it all Revenue Cloud, and you can still get those other products if you want, but it's Revenue Cloud. But JM has done a good job of starting to increase awareness and exposure. Wayne's doing a lot of great work documenting things. He's created some fantastic resources for consultants and architects, freely available. They're just Word documents or PDFs that he's putting out. So I would say, connect with Wayne Salazar, connect with JM Trombley, I think his last name is. The Cloud Update is his YouTube channel. Subscribe to that. While you're at it, subscribe to mine. I always forget to say that. So if you like these videos, be sure to subscribe. I always think it's cheesy as shit when people say that in their YouTube videos, but that's because they're sitting here like, make sure you hit subscribe and blah, blah, blah. And they turn it into this whole cheesy ordeal. But if you want to learn about Revenue Cloud, subscribe to my shit. I'll keep talking about it because it's all I do. But
Can we trademark the term subscribe to my shit? I'm just asking a general question.
I should print that on a t-shirt and then wear that at Dreamforce this year. Garvin's Consulting on YouTube. Subscribe to my shit. But it's not shit, which is evident by the fact that I have as many as these big 500 and 600 person Salesforce consulting firms, including Simplus of all people. But I thought they would have more. Slalom has a whole bunch of subscribers. They got almost a couple thousand subscribers. But it's been surprising to me as my cursory research of like other consulting shops and how many subscribers they have, which to me just speaks to the low barrier to entry for somebody wanting to create a name for themselves online. I've also seen a couple of new people come out of nowhere making a lot of CPQ videos similar to what I'm doing. Their use cases are more simple. One of them is also using food, although she's using like Indian dishes and a broader spectrum, whereas I stick just to the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but it's the same principle. Um, and she's also making this particular person I'm thinking of, I'm forgetting her name offhand, but she's making a lot of CPQ content and including her solution design documents. Okay, how did I make this thing? Which is great. I don't know where she's got the time for that. Hopefully I'll be able to make some more time for myself to do these things, because I think that in addition to the videos, having accompanying blog posts with screenshots and maybe even some documented fields, like what metadata did I create to do this, or what are my pick list values, things where it's so easy for an admin who doesn't know CPQ to go to my website or my YouTube channel and just get the information they need. I know that people did that with the ACV video where they said, oh, this was great. They contacted me as a lead for that reason. Hey, we don't normally use consultants at all, but we wanted to reach out and see what you had thought about this solution design. And I thought, okay, I'll meet some new Revenue Cloud nerds. This is fine. But they used my ACV price rule video and implemented it for their org. And they said, it works great. And they didn't have to pay $1 for it. And I think that's beautiful, because when I was starting out, I just needed access to information. And a lot of other softwares, SAP, Microsoft, et cetera, a lot of them keep this very cagey, closed off feel with their material, where the Salesforce ecosystem has always been very open about sharing knowledge. And I really like that about the Salesforce ecosystem. That's one of my favorite things about it, of people first, because there's like the best people I've ever worked with in this ecosystem. And
You're welcome.
some of my best friends, you included, my friend. But what I also love is the universality of helpfulness, where like you can tell there's those people that are Salesforce people, and there's those people that are in the Salesforce ecosystem, but they're not Salesforce people. And
Hmm.
they're closed off, and they're just like, I'm thinking here of a couple of particular Salesforce consulting firms where the mindset is one of scarcity. Like, I have to protect this knowledge because if I share it, then you're not going to want to work with me. I find it's the exact opposite. The more knowledge that I share, the more people want to work with me. And I have to say, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm full. I have too many
Hmm.
clients right now. I can work with you in 3 months. And in many cases, they go, that's fine. Our purchasing takes forever. So let's start it now.
Yeah.
And then by the time their procurement process is done, I'm ready to go. And I can plan now months and months in advance of when I'm going to need bandwidth. So today's the last day with one of my clients. So I'll have actually a little break before Dreamforce to kind of cool it, because the past couple months have been pretty fast paced running the two businesses and all of that. But it's good. I'll keep doing content about CPQ and RLM and billing if we ever get to that point. I do want to show some and teach some stuff about Salesforce billing, because it is still going to be around. There's no plan, and this is from Salesforce. There's no plan to sunset or end of sale CPQ or billing in the immediate future. They might eventually end of sale, but you really can't end of life those products. We have 7,000 customers or something like that on Salesforce CPQ/billing. You can't just cut those over. That's going to be a whole specialization that a consultancy could put itself in, is helping companies make the switch from A to B. And to that point, I suppose I could pull up the, I've had these windows open for weeks. I'm very much turning into my mother in this way, where I'm trying to show the difference between the different products. Is this it? Let's see. What's this? Okay, that's not it. Uh, that's not it. I think this might be it. I was starting to find What is this? Ah, yes, this is it. And then we got this. I'm queuing up some tabs in my browser here so I could talk through these different products. I have to wake up the tabs because they've been asleep for about 4 or 5 weeks now. Okay, back to Trailhead. And if you didn't catch it, 6 of my 7 Salesforce certifications expired. Thankfully, I still have Platform App Builder.
I think you could contact them and say, hey, I'm sorry, I let these expire. And
I let them expire
so,
4 months ago. So,
oh,
yeah.
well, you gotta stay on. I just got a new certification last week.
Well, what I want to do is I want to turn it into a PR stunt. So I lost my six of 7 Salesforce certifications, and what I want to do is in one weekend, I want to get them all back without studying, just to show like I know my shit. Hold my beer. We'll see if I'm able to do that though. I would like to get a perfect score on the CPQ one. I think it would be kind of sad if I didn't, but you know, you never know. Even my mentor didn't get a perfect score and he wrote the damn thing. Sometimes you just forget stuff, you know?
Yeah, let's just stick with getting the certifications back. Let's not
Yeah, that's
put too much
fair.
pressure on ourselves.
Well, then I also thought, well, what is the minimum effective dose for me to actually get what I need to have as a partner? And that's administrator, sales cloud consultant, and CPQ specialist. If I get those 3, I'll be back to where I need to be, and then I can focus on other stuff. But I'm not really playing the certification game anymore. I'm trying to play a whole different game, one of effectiveness and efficiency. And I think certifications are good. In general, it's a nice way to quantify what you know. It's a way to give yourself a backlog of things to learn. Hey, I don't know what to learn next. Well, find a new certification. It's going to have different sections. It's going to have different requirements. As an admin, you need to know how to do blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Fantastic. It's going to help you expand your view of the platform. Even if you never sit for the certification and you never worry about the exam, just knowing the types of business requirements covered in certain areas will help you continue your learning path. So there's that. But what I want to talk about today, I want to basically give my interpretation, my understanding. This is not an official Salesforce understanding. This is just my sense of things related to Revenue Cloud writ large, and explain where we began and how we got to where we are and where I think this is going to go. To do that, I'm going to start sharing my screen. And for this, I want to use the official Salesforce documentation because I don't want to speak any mistruths or untruths or alternative facts, whatever you want to call them. So I'm going to use the actual release notes, and we're going to talk about these things that are publicly available on the Salesforce website. I can and will include these links in the video after this as well. So if you wanted to see the resources that I'm using, I'll make sure those are available in the YouTube video because I like to document stuff. What the hell is Revenue Cloud? That's the question I think a lot of people want to know. And it's an answer that is difficult to give because of Revenue Cloud's interesting and complex history. Revenue Cloud goes back before CPQ was at Salesforce. It goes back further than that. And you could even trace this back even earlier to the founders of BigMachines, who created a configure price quote tool that then sold to Oracle for a whole boatload of money. And then they basically said, hey, that was pretty cool. We made a lot of money making a configure price quote solution. Let's do it again, but let's do it on the Salesforce platform. And that's where we had SteelBrick. SteelBrick was a configure price quote tool built on the Salesforce platform for the Salesforce platform, whereas BigMachines was more oriented towards Oracle solutions. From what I understand, and I'm not a BigMachines expert at all, though I do know people who came from that world, there were a couple different flavors of what became Oracle CPQ, but it started as BigMachines, and then BigMachines was acquired. It was rebranded as Oracle CPQ. For what I understand, it's still being sold. Companies still use it, and all that. But that was kind of your first major, to my understanding, and my knowledge, of course, is limited. But that was the first major configure price quote tool. And then those people who created that first one said, let's do this again. And they made SteelBrick CPQ. I don't exactly remember where the name SteelBrick came from, but I think it was from sort of like name generator tool sort of a thing. A couple of words put together, boom, we have a brand, and then they ran with it. Where this maps out and parallels my career is that when SteelBrick CPQ was in its infancy, so was my Salesforce career. And at the time, a little over 10 years ago, I was working for a company called Vistex as a sales operations coordinator. They had a custom CRM, but one of the acquisitions they made had, one of the acquired companies had Salesforce, and I was able to start tinkering with that. Eventually, that company implemented Salesforce to run its internal processes, and I volunteered to be the admin. That's how I got my foot in the door. Around that same time, I started tinkering with the standard quote object, which is still available. And we'll get to this with revenue lifecycle management, but it's still available as just a standalone quoting solution. It's included in Sales Cloud. You just enable quotes, and now you can have multiple quotes on an opportunity. You can synchronize a primary quote with your opportunity. There's a master detail relationship there, which has its own sharing implications. But that I started playing with in a sandbox, and I was saying, not even knowing that CPQ, SteelBrick CPQ existed, I didn't know what quoting really was. But I was tinkering with this in a sandbox, and I went to my sales VP and I said, hey, I think we should think about this quotes thing. Look, we can make a quote on an opportunity and generate a basic document of things. For that particular company, it didn't really make sense because their products were sold on SAP paper. SAP basically handled all of that stuff. And even customer support cases would first go through SAP and then go to this other company. But I started experimenting with quotes, and I went to a Salesforce event in Chicago and somehow acquired a SteelBrick CPQ t-shirt, because who doesn't love swag, especially my younger self who was excited to be getting into the Salesforce ecosystem. So I got this shirt, and it was like kind of like an American Eagle with a ribbon, and it said, "In SteelBrick we trust." That was the t-shirt. And so I picked up this t-shirt, not having any idea what it was, and I went about my life. In late 2015, when I was now spending more and more time doing Salesforce stuff, the acquisition of SteelBrick happened by Salesforce. Salesforce paid, I believe it was $300 million or something like that for SteelBrick, which is wild. Why not me? So Salesforce paid a whole boatload of money for SteelBrick, and it was later rebranded as Salesforce CPQ. And that's the product that most of us watching these videos now are familiar with. We've used it, we've learned from it. There are modules on Trailhead. I've taught hundreds of people Salesforce CPQ. I've implemented or been involved with hundreds of customers at this point. I've had my hands on keys at many, many companies. I've seen the best, I've seen the worst. There's not much anymore that could scare me when it comes to Salesforce CPQ. That acquisition happened. Some new functions were rolled out over time, and then it kind of stopped 5 years ago, and not much has happened with Salesforce CPQ since then. But documentation for it still exists. We have manager quotes with CPQ. That's the name of this article in the community. And this is your repository, your table of contents here for everything related to Salesforce CPQ, the artist formerly known as SteelBrick CPQ. So if you are a customer, partner, etc., who is working with Salesforce CPQ, this is the central location for all of your official knowledge from Salesforce, your knowledge articles, etc. So you can bookmark this. I'll share the link here in the description of this YouTube video later. We have SteelBrick CPQ. All this is well and good. Salesforce now had a quoting tool of its own that it got via acquisition. The people from SteelBrick went over to Salesforce as part of the acquisition. Many of them are still there. Many of them went on to work for partners. Some of them work for customers now. So we kind of they scattered. In the winter of 2016, right after the acquisition, is when I got my first official Salesforce administrator job at a company called MediaOcean, and they were doing an implementation of Salesforce that included Sales Cloud and Service Cloud and Community Cloud, which is now Experience Cloud, Salesforce CPQ, which was still called SteelBrick for a while after the acquisition, Marketo, a whole bunch of other things were being implemented. And my boss was the VP of Sales Ops. And even though I was the admin of the whole system and all of those products, by the end of the project, I was spending all of my time with this CPQ thing. And it was frustrating and it was annoying, and none of us really knew how it worked. But I had a consultant and mentor of mine, and now a friend, Carl, who's a fantastic consultant. One of these days, I will poach Carl, but I just can't do that yet. But Carl is a fantastic resource, and he taught me the first things that I knew about CPQ. Let's go a little further down. I was an admin there for a little while, and then I decided I wanted to get a new job. A piece of advice given to me was to spend some time doing the admin thing, but then to get into consulting. Well, thankfully, at the time, if you knew how to spell CPQ, you could get a job doing CPQ consulting. So I went to work for Simplus. And that's where my knowledge really started to take off. That's also around the time that Salesforce Billing started to come into vogue. Salesforce Billing was first an acquired company. I believe it was Invoiceit or something like this. My details might be incorrect, so you might have to fact check what I'm saying. But from what I understand, Salesforce acquired a company that was a billing solution. They had Salesforce Billing, and then, oops, apparently this product isn't as great as we thought it was, so they remade it. And that became Salesforce Billing. So if you were on version 1.0 of Salesforce Billing, it wasn't just a simple upgrade to version 2.0. Version 1.0 didn't exist very long, and most of the Salesforce Billing that anybody is using today is that 2.0 version. So now you had a quoting solution and a billing solution that were owned by Salesforce, and then you're trying to smush the two together. But they are two different packages. They're two different licenses. They are priced in different ways. Salesforce CPQ licenses are priced more on a per user basis, whereas billing is priced more on a revenue processed through the billing tool. How much are you using is more of a usage model from what I understand. Talk to your Salesforce account executive for details on pricing. Salesforce Billing, this is your central hub for Salesforce Billing. It is still a managed package, just like Salesforce CPQ. And all of the knowledge that you need is, well, a lot of the knowledge that you need is right here. But as we all know, Salesforce's documentation rarely keeps up with its releases, which is understandable because creating documentation and training is really hard work, and it takes a very long time to do. For every hour of training that you want, you probably have to spend 40 hours on it. And at the time, there was only one technical writer for the entire Revenue Cloud product. Now, as we move forward on John's career timeline and Salesforce CPQ / billing / Revenue Cloud's timeline, I got a job at Salesforce. I had worked in the partner ecosystem. I was at Simplus for a little bit. Then I went to another consulting partner. And then I got beamed up by the mothership. And then I was an architect at Salesforce. I was a CPQ implementation architect, which later turned into solution architect. Potato, potato, same shit, different day. Well, same shit, different title. But I was doing these projects, and while at Salesforce, CPQ and billing became a cloud. So they bought Salesforce CPQ, SteelBrick CPQ, it became Salesforce CPQ. Then Salesforce Billing came along, and then Salesforce started branding both as Salesforce Quote to Cash, which is where you could still see relics of that through the industry. I originally called my trail mix that I put together Learn Salesforce Quote to Cash because that's what they were kind of branding it as. But then when I was at Salesforce, Salesforce quote to cash / Salesforce CPQ plus billing, or however you wanted to call it, was rebranded to be Salesforce Revenue Cloud. It became a cloud. It was its own cloud. And at the time, it was a big deal to become a cloud at Salesforce. Yeah, ad hoc products here and there, like Quip Cloud, for example. But there's a revenue cloud. That was a big deal at the time, and we were all very excited that we were a cloud. And now it seems like Salesforce's Oprah saying, and you get a cloud, and everybody gets a cloud. You're all clouds now. And it's like, oh, well, it was fun while it lasted. We had that specialness. And while I was at Salesforce, there were starting to be whispers of this new kid in town, subscription management. What is subscription management? Well, doesn't CPQ do subscription management? It does. It does do subscription management, but there's subscription management and there's subscription management, which is a completely different product. This specific topic of CPQ, subscription management, and subscription management, the product, came up in a final interview I had while I was at Salesforce. I was trying to get out of consulting. Ironic that I later started a consulting firm to get out of the corporate world. But the question in the interview was from a customer. So one of the interviewers was a principal solution engineer, still is a principal solution engineer at Salesforce. And the question from them was, hey, I thought that there was subscription management in CPQ, but I heard there was a product called subscription management. What's the difference? Which was a really good interview question. Kudos to that person for asking that question. And I never thought to answer that, so I didn't prepare an answer, but well, I tried to explain it. And the difference is that subscription management in CPQ is managing subscriptions on contracts. It is a function of the broader CPQ product, where subscription management here is specific to, it's a whole other product. It is an independent product. It is a core product for managing your subscriptions. But here's the thing, it's end of sale. It's not really going to be used anymore. And the customers that are on it will eventually be moved over to revenue lifecycle management, which we'll get to this. And the next release is going to be rebranded yet again to be Revenue Cloud. So I guess we just keep going in a circle, essentially. But subscription management was the first, looking back, it was kind of the first inklings that there was going to be a new thing. It was API first. It was focused on subscriptions. It was focused on more of that omni sales experience where I could use this to pull things in from maybe an e-commerce portal, but I could also do some direct sales. And it was starting to move in that direction. And we had a product that supported that. And I want to say there's a handful of customers that ended up purchasing it and using it. I've never encountered any myself. I think it was a short-lived thing, but the documentation here persists. Likely because some of these pieces are relevant for the next iteration of the product, which was revenue lifecycle management, which now, as you can even see here, we got revenue lifecycle management, but here it's called Revenue Cloud, and here it's called Revenue Cloud, but in the intro video, it's called Revenue Lifecycle Management because apparently we didn't remake the video yet. But down here, it's Introduction to Revenue Cloud, and product catalog management, pricing, rate management, all of these things are functions within Salesforce Revenue Cloud. But you'll also see, maybe not on this page, but when you start digging into the bowels of the documentation here, specifically something like maybe Business Rules Engine. Is there a link here? Business Rules Engine is a related sort of topic. Well, Business Rules Engine starts talking about industries. Well, what happened here? Well, along the way, Salesforce acquired a company called Vlocity. So this was, let's see, Salesforce Vlocity acquisition. Signs definitive. Okay, so in 2020, February 2020, this was around the time I started at Salesforce the summer of 2020. So this would have been a little bit beforehand. And as I was looking at jobs at Salesforce, I was noticing these roles for CPQ for industries. Oh, what the hell is that? CPQ for industries. And I was reading the job descriptions, and the job descriptions, that's not CPQ. That's not the stuff. They're not mentioning anything that I know because they're talking about Business Rules Engine. They're talking about Omni Studio, all these other things. Oh, okay. So Salesforce ended up buying two different CPQ tools, one in 2015 and one in 2020. They bought two different CPQ tools. Very interesting. And then later, I was talking to friends of mine who worked for Revenue Cloud, like OG, original Revenue Cloud, selling Salesforce CPQ and Salesforce Billing, who were finding themselves in deals where you're competing against yourself because there's a Vlocity now, sales CPQ for industries person. So now you're both trying to sell competing products, but you're within the same company. So now you have, okay, we got this version of CPQ, we got that version of CPQ, we've got subscription management, and then now we've got the revenue lifecycle management, which is now, I guess, Revenue Cloud. So yeah, it's confusing as hell. You know, if you feel confused by all the branding, you are not alone. It takes this is my best understanding of what all of this is. So what the hell is revenue lifecycle management if this is a new product? Well, revenue lifecycle management is built on core. It is not a managed package. Salesforce CPQ and Salesforce Billing are managed packages. I don't really know much about Vlocity. What I do know is that revenue lifecycle management, or the new Revenue Cloud, the new CPQ, whatever they want to call it now, is more of a Vlocity 2.0 than a SteelBrick 2.0. But some of the principles present in Salesforce CPQ are also present in Revenue Lifecycle Management. And then some of the things that were in play for like Business Rules Engine, which was there for Vlocity, and some of this more industries speak is present in Revenue Lifecycle Management. So what's happening here? Well, Salesforce bought this company and they bought this company, and then we're trying to merge them together. So right now, you could almost think of this as currently more of like a Frankenstein's monster. We grabbed a head from here, we got a couple of arms, we got some legs, we got a torso, and it's in rough shape. You know, Frankenstein's monster was not the prettiest fellow in the world. And over time, you know, and a lot of plastic surgery, things will start to get better. But what's happening, we're melding the two technologies together, is essentially what I see happening. All of it's moving to the Salesforce core platform. So you're getting new standard objects showing up in your environments. You're getting new fields on these objects. Even if you're a company that had previously had standard quotes, you're going to start seeing new fields showing up on your quote and your quote line objects. Some of those fields may be enabled only if you have RLM. That's one thing that I'm still not sure of, and I'm trying to figure out is what is going to be present without RLM using the standard quote and quote line objects, and then what will be present only after I have enabled revenue lifecycle management or / revenue cloud, or whatever we're calling it these days. So that's the basic picture of what's happened. We started with an acquisition of SteelBrick CPQ. We acquired a billing product. We pivoted and rebuilt the billing product. That was Salesforce Quote to Cash, which became Salesforce Revenue Cloud. Then we added subscription management, which still fit under the broader umbrella for branding purposes of Salesforce Revenue Cloud. We acquired Vlocity. That was David Schmeier's company. So we acquired Vlocity. That was then Industries CPQ, because Vlocity was more pre-built point solutions for specific industries, telecom or maybe manufacturing, or different industries to have common requirements among vendors in those industries. And that's where that industry's idea came from. So that's kind of cool, because why would I reinvent the wheel over and over when I can build something that'll work for a broad spectrum of manufacturers, for example? So we've got the Vlocity stuff, but then we also have some other pieces involved. We have customer asset lifecycle management, which was a CPQ function, kind of, except you needed a billing license to get it, which became asset lifecycle management, which then became asset management. So I guess when you want to rebrand, just keep chopping words off of your brand and you rebrand it. It's a whole new product. Or just throw the word Einstein in and then take it out and then put it back in again and then take it out again. And when in doubt, use AI. And then we have order management as part of the CPQ package, but we also have order management, the product. And that's kind of part of your manufacturing cloud. So we have a whole bunch of pieces and parts that we're trying to cobble together into a comprehensive revenue operations, commercial systems thing, which for a while, for the first few years, is going to be a convoluted mess to understand, as I've shown in trying to explain the history in 45 minutes. And some of that, yes, I'm long-winded. I've gotten critiques on this on my YouTube videos. However, it's also a complicated subject. But the long and the short of it is revenue lifecycle management, which will in the next release be Revenue Cloud, is the future. That's where, if you remember that Wayne Gretzky's quote of "Don't skate to where the puck, skate to where the puck is going, not where the puck has been." Revenue Cloud, aka the artist formerly known as alias Revenue Lifecycle Management, is the future. That's where we're going. It's very, in some ways, it is strikingly similar to what we already know. In other ways, it is strikingly different. And there's a lot to learn. The product will continue to evolve and develop. There are a lot of people working very hard to bring this thing to life and put some plastic surgery on it to make the parts work together a little better, all this other stuff. But this is where we're going. And this is your knowledge article for that. I did some other articles here going back to 2020. Salesforce introduces Salesforce Revenue Cloud. This was November 2020. I was about, let's see, August, September, October. I was a few months into Salesforce. This was when it became a cloud. So COVID hit and da-da-da. So now Revenue Cloud is a thing. Here's an article about Salesforce introducing to transform revenue lifecycle management. Oh, look at that. The new Revenue Cloud product connects quote to cash process. And now we're going to eventually call this, like you have product catalog management. That's a Vlocity thing. Price management, that's a Vlocity thing. Transaction management, that's the Vlocity thing. CPQ is a mix of both. It's got some of each. Contract lifecycle management, that's CLM, which is kind of like Salesforce's contract lifecycle management or Salesforce contracts is more advanced than quote templates, but it's not yet like it still has a way to go before it's a really mature CLM. But I do have a client that's using it in their business. Dynamic revenue orchestration. This is kind of this is from your manufacturing cloud kind of thing. If I have a commercial product and a technical product. So if I bought a computer, the computer has a whole bunch of parts inside, and I need to take, when I sell that laptop, I need to break that laptop apart, and I need to send all those pieces and parts downstream so that my people can fulfill it, because we have to use that for demand planning, inventory management, provisioning in some cases, whatever. So we need to send that downstream. That's what that dynamic revenue orchestration is, blah, blah, blah. So we got omni-channel buying and selling. This was a core pain point of CPQ. I was doing a proof of concept this year with a client where they have direct sales of a rep interacting with the customer. They have partner sales where a partner will log into their Salesforce org and manage deals there. Both of those work great with CPQ. But they also have partners who will log into their own portals and log deals. They'll register deals and stuff through their own portal and they'll submit orders that way. Well, that's not really a good fit for CPQ. And then you have self-service, where I'm either logging into a portal as a customer and I'm changing my quantities myself, or I'm going to your website and through an e-commerce function, I'm placing an order. That's what we're starting to get to with omni-channel buying and selling. So if I think about all these things as commercial systems, how is my business making money? And what are the different tools and systems and processes that I need to sell stuff and get money? And selling stuff is not just a direct thing. It's something, and it's not just an e-commerce thing. It's a mix of both for many companies, especially the biggest ones. And the same thing with getting money. Sometimes I want to get a money from a credit card swipe at a payment terminal. Sometimes I want to get money because I got your card on file. Sometimes I want to get money because I sent you an invoice with a billing system, and then you send me a paper check or something like this. Ironically, a client that I've had that is a payment processor mails me paper checks. I'll just leave that. Anyway, revolutionizing revenue, a sneak peek at Revenue Cloud roadmap. This is the latest article that I could find back in May, where Meredith Schmidt, who is the product owner of Salesforce Revenue Cloud, she's the general manager, I think, of Revenue Cloud, the big boss. And so she's the big boss. And this is what she's talking about with the then versus now and where we're going and what's happening. Decompose and orchestrate order processes. This is what I was talking about with dynamic revenue orchestration, where we're separating the commercial and those other products. Got additional enhancements beyond summer 2024. There's probably a newer article on winter 24 or winter 25, I guess it would be. It's a big release. There's a lot of cool stuff that's going to be in it. I'll probably do a separate video on that. But in a nutshell, in an hour-long nutshell, that's kind of the history of Salesforce Revenue Cloud and a little glimpse into where it's going in the future. Right now, I'm rapidly learning Revenue Lifecycle Management, aka Revenue Cloud, the new version. It's almost like Star Trek, Revenue Cloud, the next generation. I'm not a Star Trek guy, so if you make Star Trek jokes, I won't get them. That's about the extent of my Star Trek joke knowledge. My apologies if you're offended by my lack of Star Trek knowledge. But it's kind of like that. It's the same thing, but it's not really. It's a different thing, but it's still kind of the same thing. And the same creator is making money off of both of those kind of similar things. It's like that. I didn't expect my metaphors to go to Star Trek today, but you never know what to expect in Revenue Cloud office hours. With that, are there any questions on what I've discussed? I know there was a lot that I threw out there, and this is just, and I might be wrong about a lot of this stuff too, or maybe you disagree with my opinion. That's totally fine. This is just my understanding of what this product is and has become based on what I've seen over the course of my career, because the vast majority of my Salesforce career has involved this. Even going back to when I was a baby admin, tinkering with standard quotes on opportunities in a sandbox, I've been interested in this naturally for a very long time. And then I got into CPQ. So I've been there since sort of the beginning. There are others who are friends of mine who have been in the game far longer than me, who know way more than I do about this stuff. But that's what I've seen, and that's my best attempt, I think, to distill everything I've seen over the past, say, 8 to 10 years into an hour-long video to show the trajectory of where I think things are going. I suspect that we'll see a lot of really cool stuff. Oh, there are also, for the first time, not the first time, but there are a lot of 18, I think it was, about 18 or so sessions at Dreamforce about Revenue Cloud. Last year, there were far less. All of the sessions that I found that are like specifically Revenue Cloud are led by Salesforce. So I suspect that this year, Salesforce really wants to control what's being said about the new product. Because it's a new product, not a lot of us really know anything. Some of us have been lucky enough, like myself, to get involved in proofs of concepts. or very early projects so that we get exposure to this product. We've done a proof of concept that will likely result in an actual project of Revenue Cloud with which I will likely be involved. Other partners have been involved in these projects as well. There are a whole bunch of other partners that are trying to get into this pool. So if you're looking to, if the product grows in the way that I think it will, this will be like a second wave of CPQ, where a lot of us built our whole career on CPQ and got to a certain level of skill where we are now architects in this sort of a thing. So even if the tool changes, it's really not going to affect my job prospects. But if you're somebody new to the Salesforce ecosystem, I keep tinkering with my pen and dropping. If you're somebody new to the Salesforce ecosystem and you're trying to find a way to differentiate yourself from among the hordes of people that are also trying to get into the Salesforce ecosystem, my best advice to you is to acquire a skill that is difficult and complicated to learn and get really goddamn good at it. That skill very well could be for you revenue lifecycle management / just Revenue Cloud in general. Revenue operations is difficult and complicated. The products, the systems and processes used to execute on the idea of selling stuff and getting money are difficult and complicated. If you can get really good at the systems and processes and business side of the revenue ops equation, that's not going to go away anytime soon. And that's something that AI is going to have a hard time touching. Will it touch it? Yes. I already saw a session at Dreamforce about AI with Revenue Cloud. I'm just thinking, oh, give me a break. But whatever. It's going to be very sales focused. It'll probably be a lot of, it won't be as much slideware. Last year at Dreamforce, there were a couple of hints, a couple of screenshots of things, and me and my peers were very excited to see like, oh shit, this is a new, what? This is cool. And now we're a year later. So you're seeing actual sessions about the new product. Hey, here's an introduction to our new product. There are sessions at Dreamforce. You can see them in the agenda builder. And I'm excited about those. I bookmarked every single one of them. I'm going to be going to those sessions. And one of my ideas, maybe I'll just, maybe not live stream from it, but give a quick debrief at the end of each day of Dreamforce. Like, hey, Revenue Cloud, Dreamforce, day 1, Revenue Cloud, Dreamforce, day 2. I don't know if that would be cool, if anybody would be interested in watching something like that, just some quick videos, because I'll probably be too busy after the day is done schmoozing and gallivanting around San Francisco, trying not to get stabbed, you know. But the future looks pretty bright. The product is frustrating as hell to use right now, but everybody knows that. It's a new product. It's going to be frustrating as hell to use. It's like when I'm sure the first versions of a car were not pretty. They were not easy to use. You know, you had that crank in the front and stuff, and people would break their thumbs if it kicked back and things like that. That's where we are. It's fine. It's a new product. Where it will get over time, assuming that the investment that Salesforce has already demonstrated with the new product, assuming that that investment and the effort, the time, energy, and money remains constant for a while, I think we're going to end up with something pretty cool. But right now it's a pain in the ass because it's a new product. And that's just how it is. It's like any new software. It's like any new product to market. It's like me starting my gym. My jiu-jitsu gym is not exactly run the way that I thought I was going to run it, because you learn things and you adjust. It gets a little better, but it's been a very crude, you know, it's just a room with some mats. That's all it was at first. Well, then it was a room with some mats and a paint job. And then it's a room with some mats and some, now I got door stickers. And the same thing with Garvin's Consulting. At first, Garvin's Consulting was a 1-page website with mostly my LinkedIn connections and existing network bringing me into deals. And it's still just me. That's fine. I've got some friends who want to subcontract with me and other friends who want to leave corporate America, just go off on their own, but maybe they don't want to source their own deals, or they don't want to deal with the administrative side of it. So it's cool. I'll sell it and send your invoices for you in exchange for a cut of the money, and then you get paid too. Great. So any living organism will grow and mature and evolve, but it takes time. And we all have to be patient with that and just accept that we can push as much as we want, but there is a natural rate of change that is, you can't really get around it. And organizations that do try to get around it and take shortcuts, it cuts in the other direction. If you want to build something that will stand the test of time, it will take time to build it. That's just how it is. But you know, if you don't give a shit and you want it to last as long as a bottle rocket, go nuts. And that's all I have to say about that. Look at that, 2:30 on the dot. Boom, I nailed this.